his disciples, these in-between times. Jesus is resurrected. He hasn't ascended yet, and so he appears to his followers in several different ways. And we heard about Jesus appearing in the garden. There's something about his appearance, though, that makes people not immediately recognize him. So when Mary Magdalene sees him on Easter morning, she doesn't recognize him. She thinks he's who? The gardener. And it's not until he calls her by her name that she recognizes him. In our reading from Luke today, some of Jesus' followers are walking to Emmaus, and this guy comes up alongside, and he talks to them. Not only does he speak to them, but they speak specifically about Jesus of Nazareth, but it is not until he breaks bread with them. I love the end of our gospel reading today, that when they went back and shared with Jesus' disciples, they shared how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. Have you ever run into somebody that you didn't recognize at first? Right? What are some things that made you finally realize who they were? Maybe they told you who they were. Like, hey, do you remember me from school? What else? What helps us to recognize people? Their voice, their eyes. This morning at the early service, people shared they look like their father. Maybe they hadn't seen somebody in 20 years, and they look like their father. Well, a couple years ago, my father passed away suddenly, and we had the visitation at his church. My dad was a pastor. He served a church near Gaithersburg, Maryland. And we had the visitation the day before the funeral, and there were lots of clergy coming and going, so there were a lot of people that I knew, and then a lot of people from Dad's church that I did not know. And as I was standing there greeting people, you know, the way you do, like you need good shoes for a visitation because you're standing and talking to people, and so I had my good comfy shoes on. I was like 7.5 months pregnant, and was just trying to make it through the evening. And I see a man walking towards me, and I go, I know him, but I could not place him. And as he got closer, I realized that it was a man from the first church I had served. He had heard about my father's passing, and even though it had been years since I had been at that church, without me knowing he was coming, he had driven a couple hours to just show up. And I recognized him by his smile. As soon as I saw him, I thought, that's Bill. Oh, I know that's Bill. And so I was able to greet him. And it's moments like that for me that I think of when I hear these accounts of Jesus appearing to his disciples, those times when we've gone, oh, not even so much for oh, that's Bill, oh, that's Jane, but, oh, that's God. Wow. I wasn't even expecting it. God has just shown up today. I hope that you will take time to share with the children of our congregation those times that God has shown up. It may be that God has shown up in times when you were expecting God to, or maybe times when God showed up in ways that just blew your mind. Our children, and really each other, need to learn to be open to God. One of the things that is striking about our gospel reading today is how much those followers of Jesus talk to him. And I wonder, of all of the things that made it difficult for them to recognize that Jesus was walking with them, if part of it was they weren't listening. They were just speaking. And so for us, some of the most powerful times in our lives are those times when we just listen for God. When we try to be present with God without an agenda. This is one of the things that Chris and I love so much about camping and retreat ministries. And I know that you have experienced this as well. Those times when we stop coming to God with our agenda and we just allow ourselves to be met wherever we are by God. This is very much at the heart of who we are as Methodists. John Wesley founded a movement that was within the Church of England, now the Anglican Church, because he was convinced that being a follower of Christ should mean more than just showing up on Sunday morning, that it had to be a whole life commitment, and that it meant not just talking to God, but listening and seeing where God was guiding us. There's an organization today that with very deep roots in the Methodist movement called Walk to Emmaus, and a number of those in our congregation have participated in the retreats that Walk to Emmaus offers. Their scripture basis is this gospel we've read today about Jesus meeting us where we are. And so today, as we reflect on where God has met us, where God has met you, where God has met me, we're going to hear some testimonies from some who have met God through the Walk to Emmaus program. And I hope this will be an opportunity for you to reflect on how God has shown up in your life and where God has met you. So I'm going to invite Dan Turner forward to begin our time of testimony today.
What we thought we would do as a group is just, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of the Walk to Emmaus movement as it relates to the local area here especially. And then we've got some other folks that are going to give some actual testimonies about how that weekend has affected their lives. The Walk to Emmaus is actually under the auspices of the Upper Room of the United Methodist Church. They guide our weekends, what we do. We have bylaws that we strictly follow. And we here offer 4 weekends a year, 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall, 2 for women, 2 for men. And we have been, the walk that I'm going on next weekend is number 125. So if you do the math, we've been at this here in this area for over 30 years. And Pastor Sarah just alluded to some of what we really want to do. You go to this and you meet God in ways that you never imagined that you might meet God. And what we would like folks to do then is come home to their church and do something. Don't just sit out there in the pew. Do something. So I would like right now, for everybody that's here, well, I'll tell you that I know that in our congregation, 28 people have walked the Walk to Emmaus. And I don't think they're all here today, but those of you who are, would you please stand up? Anyone who's gone on the walk? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, it's okay. 17 of us are here. And now, if you glance real quickly at who these people are, they're all doing something in this church. They're leading youth groups. They're helping with children's church. They're dealing with the Methodist men, singing in the choir. Everybody, I said dealing with Methodist men. Sorry. They're helping with the Methodist men. They're in prison ministries. They're all doing something other than just sitting in a pew. You guys can see it. So, I just say that and show you who these folks are, just to let you know that we truly feel moved by God to do something more than just be here on a Sunday. And it's just very important that we all start to feel that. So I'm gonna, let's see, who's now? Oh, Carol's next, I think. Okay, so Carol Beebe's next, and we'll move on.
I got invited to Walk to Emmaus by Ron Nagley, and I really didn't know anything about Emmaus, but I just said, okay, and didn't do a lot of research. I'd heard little things here and there, but was just open to going through the experience. Well, the first time I was supposed to walk, I got really sick. The day Ron was going to pick me up and take me to the mountain, I had the worst migraine of my life, and I had to back out. It wasn't my time, but I was blessed to get to go on the next woman's walk. So I walked on West Virginia Emmaus 120, and it was an incredible experience. What it meant for me was that I got to know me more intimately in the way that God innately made me to be. And what I mean by that, the best example, the world, it just kind of pulls on you, you know, the time pressures and the stresses and the pains that we go through, that this world, you know, that we all have to endure. The best example I can give is I watched this documentary on TED TV, and they were talking about compassion and why sometimes we show it and sometimes we don't. And they took these theological students and they all had them work on sermons about compassion, like the Good Samaritan and others. And they assigned these students the task of going to all the different buildings on the college and sharing their sermon. But what they didn't know was they strategically placed people in need on their path. And the difference between when they stopped to show compassion and when they did was how much time they had for their next sermon. So what I'm trying to say is, even when we know God in the most profound of ways and have a deep desire to serve Him, this world interferes. When you go to the mountain, there's no such thing as time. You set yourself apart and you get to experience God in a very profound way. You get to experience His love intimately, not only from Him, but Him and others. And that wellspring of Him in you comes out and you want to express it and share it. I've shared with my Emmaus brothers and sisters that my belief is that my experience with the walk to Emmaus is as close an experience to being in the heavenly body on earth that I will ever experience. And that's just a glimpse. So it gets you so excited to want to share that with everyone, for everyone to go through that. And I just pray for you, and I encourage you to pray and ask God if it is your time for your walk to Emmaus. De Colores.
Hello, my name is Michael Perello, and I had the honor of going on my walk September of 2013. It is an experience that cannot be defined easily with words. It is transformative, restorative. It's just an absolute joy that doesn't end. It's a lot of work, but it's a work that is rewarding. It's definitely not a job. It is wonderful. Before I walked, I always knew God loved me. On the walk, I was actually able to just be with God. And now I know God loves me. Just that simple change has changed my life. And I'm no longer afraid to let people know that I'm a Christian. I am out there and I am trying to create disciples. If you ever have the privilege to go, I encourage you to. And it's not a group or a clique or anything like that. It is just a wonderful time to deepen yourself in your faith. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Turner, and I have walked on Emmaus 113. Dan went over the nuts and bolts of Emmaus, that it's sponsored by the Upper Room, and that they have 2 women's walks a year, one in the fall, one in the spring, and 2 men's walks a year, one in the fall, one in the spring. And then we had 2 testimonies from people who went there. What I'm going to do is wrap it up by saying a little bit about the obstacles to Emmaus. Some Emmaus people find it cute I do not, to frighten people about the weekend and say, oh, you have to walk 100 miles, or there's nothing to eat, or something like that. Those are funny. I get that. But I don't want them to become an obstacle to going. I want you to understand that you are loved and cherished and cared for on the weekend. Another thing about the weekend is that a lot of people feel that there are secrets about the weekend. Well, I have a friend who is a Jew, and we often sit down and talk about our different faiths, very honestly. Like, she doesn't know how buying a widescreen TV helps somebody celebrate their faith. And that's pretty hard to explain. And when I tried to explain to her why we buy Christmas gifts, she said, I would not like that at all. I would feel under pressure. What if I didn't like them? It would distract from the Christianity for me. It would distract from the religious moment. And it's difficult to explain. But like Christmas morning, Emmaus is filled with not secrets, but surprises. There's surprise after surprise after surprise. And if anybody wants to know what they're getting for Christmas and they don't feel comfortable going until they know all the surprises, I'd be happy to tell you all of them. But it's more fun if you just go trusting and open all the surprises as they happen. It's actually hysterical and fun. There's plenty of food. The question remains, what is expected from you? I am very much an introvert, believe it or not. I get all my energy from being alone or with being with Danny. When I go into a crowd of people, it sucks the energy out of me. So I was nervous about being contained with this group of people and what was expected from me. What if I was supposed to cry at this point and I didn't feel like crying? Well, in answer to that question, nothing is expected from you. You don't have to cry, you don't have to speak, you don't have to participate. You get to relax. We scoot the world back, and all the tensions and all the nervousness, we hold that back. You have nothing to do but take a walk on the road to Emmaus. And often there are pieces missing from our lives, our Christian faith. You know, we can get this far, and by faith we're going to go this road, but we can't see how to get from here to here. Well, often what happens is that puzzle piece falls into place, and you have a clearer vision of what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be going. It is an amazing weekend. Anybody who has any interest at all in going, please contact us. Anybody in this room who has gone, we can talk to you about it, maybe make you feel a little more comfortable. It is the safest place in the world to be. It is very colorful. De Coloris, which I think Carol Beebe said, means the colors. It's a very colorful event. And so I would encourage anybody who's interested in going to speak with us. The one other thing I would like for you to say to you is the last obstacle to going is that people often feel like it's a clique because everybody's close. But everybody is close because they've experienced the same surprises and they've experienced the same experiences and they've had an opportunity to relax and sort things out. Kind of like how you've made millions of friends over your lifetime, but those you went to school with, high school and elementary school, just have a special place. And that's what the weekend is too. So if you have any obstacles to going, but have any interest at all, please talk to us about it, because we would love for everybody in the church to get to experience it. De Coloris.
Many thanks to those who have shared this morning, and I do hope that you will consider whether this is an opportunity for you to be met by God. And I hope that in the days and weeks ahead that you will look for these and other opportunities to be open to God, not just to go into God and say, okay, God, I'm here. Now I want you to tell me to answer this question I have or to give me guidance here, but to just be in God's presence. For some, that is going to a retreat that is time away, that is structured, where others are caring for where you need to be when and guiding you through the process. For some, it is experiencing time outdoors, away from your phones and your calendars. Wherever we find ourselves in opportunities and spaces where we can be open to God, where we can be guided by God, these are places that God meets us. Just as God met us and met his followers on the road to Emmaus. And I encourage us when we have these experiences, when God meets us, whether it is at a walk to Emmaus weekend or whether it is in the grocery store line, to share those experiences with others. Just like the followers who went back and told the 11 and their companions about meeting Jesus on the road. Because the more we share with each other, the more we are able to be more open to all the ways that God meets us. Now, as we reflect, I invite you to remain seated during a time of reflection as we sing, "He is Exalted."